When I think about genetics, one thing always strikes me, and it's almost impossible to avoid. I hear the words genes and genetics in everyday conversations in different languages, sometimes even shouted rather than spoken. It is also true that other topics may dominate the public conversation right now. Geopolitics, for instance. And genetics might seem to have slipped out of the spotlight, but truth is, genetics never really disappears. Genetics drifts in and out of fashion, sometimes taking center stage and sometimes fading into the background. But it's always there. So much so that, even without fully understanding what it actually means, simply hearing about genetics has become almost unavoidable. Very often, conversations on genetics in the public discourse focus on genetically modified organisms or variation on that theme. They appear in the media, but also in places where opinions are expressed with great confidence, regardless of their expertise. Genetics seems to carry a certain allure, and perhaps that's the reason why it fuels public debate. It is often imagined as something science fiction-like, a tool capable of overcoming biological limits or even redefining what it means to be human. In reality, genetics is a field that covers an enormous range of subjects, from medicine and evolution to agriculture, and even covers questions about identity. There are many ways one could approach such a field, and I may approach some of them during the coming videos. For this first theme, however, I want to take a step back. My goal is to look at genetics historically, at where, how, and when genetics emerged as a scientific discipline as we understand it today. In fact, although the study of heredity may seem timeless, almost as if it had always existed in its current form, reality is quite different. Genetics did not emerge fully formed. It arose from a long 19th century struggle to understand heredity, variation, speciation, and the relation between parents and offspring. Though my own first encounter with genetics was far simpler. When I first met genetics in high school, it appeared clean, orderly, and well-defined. There was no real moment when the teacher said, "Now we begin genetics." Instead, it entered indirectly and very neatly with those that are called Mendel's laws. Something called a law immediately shapes how I think about knowledge. A law is something known and something settled. These principles were taught almost like mathematical truths, simple, elegant, and largely unquestioned. Only now, about 11 years from this first encounter, I have started to question this narrative. While thinking about the first topic for my academy, I came to the birth of genetics for several reasons, partly because of my own background. I consider myself a geneticist, or perhaps, more accurately, someone who has worked with genetic experiments in agriculture and used genetic tools in practice. I also chose this topic because it was the first topic that I encountered in genetics in my biology education. But there is also something new in the way I approach it today. During my doctoral studies, I was increasingly exposed to a different way of thinking about scientific knowledge, one that pays attention not only to final results, but also debates, disagreements, and conceptual struggles, which are the things that usually disappear once that a field presents itself as settled. This article brings together these two perspectives. On the one hand, something that almost everyone with a basic scientific education recognizes, Mendel's laws and the standard picture of inheritance. On the other, something that was largely new to me and probably to many people, the philosophical and historical analysis surrounding Mendel's experiments and their reception. What becomes clear once you look at this perspective is that Mendelian's laws were neither immediately accepted nor uniquely authoritative. Mendel was not the only person to try to make sense of heredity at the time. Genetics, as we understand it today, emerged from confusion, disagreement, and a series of ideas that did not fully succeed in principle. Its birth was anything but straightforward. In this series of videos, I will try to linearize this complex story and introduce some of the main figures and ideas that shaped the early debates on heredity. But I should warn you, this topic often involves philosophical argumentations, older forms of English, mathematics, and statistics. Plus, it's a subject that was never truly addressed during any genetics course I attended at university. This means that My understanding may be incomplete, and some parts of the story may be missing. Nevertheless, I will try my best to reconstruct these events and interpret them in a way that is modern, engaging, and accessible. We have come to the end of this first opening video on the series of The Birth of Genetic and the Study of Heredity. I want to thank you for watching. I want to encourage you to follow, to like, to comment anything related to this video, the past videos, or any future videos, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.